Live coding with me, Matt Groves. That's who I am. This is the 39th episode of Live Coding with Matt Groves that I've done. And we just wrapped up some microservices, ASP.NET microservices stuff. And I've got a blog post coming up about that, everything I've learned soon. And we did some chatbot stuff last week. This week, I've had something on my mind of the last few days, and I've been thinking about Cqrs and event sourcing. And I want to do a little bit of experimentation today to kind of prove out my thoughts and see if what I'm thinking about makes any sense. So we're going to be doing some of that stuff today. So if you're interested in that, stick around. Let's go through some of the standard plugs and things as I quiet my phone down. We've got this is kind of a motto of the channel, of the chat room, of the show, is that ask questions, ask away, no matter how stupid you think it is, how off topic you think it is. It's only stupid if you don't ask it. So please ask away. We'll do our best to help you. Myself and other people in the chat room. We've got some great people that hang out with me on the regular here that can also chime in and help. So please do not be afraid to ask questions. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't be afraid to leave a comment asking a question. Or, if you're watching episode, what is this? This is 38? If you're watching episode 38 and, it's been 2 months and you have a question about episode 38, come back on the live stream. Twitch, right there at the bottom, Twitch TV/Matthew D. Groves. Just come on in, ask a question, and we'll try to answer it. It'll be great. So this is a safe place to ask questions, is what I'm trying to say here. I am part of the Team Live Coders on Twitch. This is Twitch/team/Live Coders, and you can see all my team members here listed as 92 of us so far, and growing, I assume. And there's 4 other people streaming right now about other cool stuff. So if you're in the mood to watch some live streaming, this is a great place to start. Twitch/team/Live Coders. These are all people who are doing live coding, have similar approaches to interaction and questions. They all have different topics, different time zones, and things like that. So definitely start here and check out some of these other cool people on the team. And we're going to revisit this later on today. Towards the end of the stream, we're going to find someone to raid and go join their channel. So check that out. And I think as a new command in the bot, let me see if this works. Live coders. There we go. So I can plug the live coders now by just typing bang live coders. I can do the same thing to plug awesome dev, which is the awesome developers streaming list, which is right here. This is a much wider selection of live coders who are not just on Twitch, they may be on YouTube or on Mixer or Facebook or Periscope or wherever. And it's a huge list of them. It's searchable with just a Control F in your browser. You can search for names, you can search for keywords, all kinds of stuff in here. And has been updated in just over a week. So we're not going to do our normal search to see if there's new people streaming about data, which is sort of, I kind of want to find other people streaming about data so we can hang out with them and promote them. Not very many. But there are some. But there's lots of game development on here. Every single programming language you can think of is on here. Different cloud platforms, web frameworks, JavaScript, all kinds of stuff. So check out this list. This is github/bnb/awesome developer streams. And you can just do a bang awesome dev, and that will plug that link right there in the chat room. Okay, what else we got? We have got, awesome developer streaming. bit.ly/GroveStube. It's the bottom of the screen there, right in the middle, the bottom of the screen. That is where I put all the recordings of these episodes. After they're done, I'll throw them over on YouTube. Sometimes I'll even make little highlight clips of them. If there's some short little bit, it's Calvin A. Allen. What's up? Speaking of awesome developer streaming, Calvin A. Allen's in the house. But you can go to bit.ly/GrovesTube and check out the archive of old episodes and leave a comment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, all that kind of good stuff there if you're interested in seeing those episodes as I archive them over YouTube. They're on Twitch for a certain period of time, but I put them on YouTube so they'll stay there indefinitely. Okay, TwitchBot is currently on and chatting. I demonstrated that already with the Bang Live Coders and the Bang Awesome Dev. This is not the current project we're working on. But the TwitchBot is on, and what I want to do is I'm going to set current project to be a page about the event sourcing pattern. This is martinfowler.com. Martin Fowler, very influential coding architect, leader, writer, pundit sort of guy. Really, really super intelligent. And he's got a site that has a lot of information about patterns and coding stuff. So we're going to link to him. Event sourcing isn't like something you can download or a piece of software or anything like that. It's a pattern, a design pattern, and the same thing with Cqrs. So it's not like there is a definitive, way, a definitive architecture, like a definitive set of code to do this. There's lots of options, as we're going to see today. But I think it's as good a place as any. If you're interested in what we're talking about, go check out the event sourcing page of Martin Fowler. C# Advent is still going on. I need to tweet about this. We got some spots left still. If you're into C# or you're learning about C#, this csadvent.christmas URL is provided courtesy of Calvin A. Allen, but it just redirects to the main C# Advent page for the third annual C# Advent this year. And here are the people who've already signed up. As you can see, there are some gaps here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 gaps, which means there are 7 spots left because one of those is going to be mine. The last one available will be mine. 7 spots left if you want to write a blog about C# or record a podcast or a video or write a tutorial or something like that. As long as you can link back to the main C# Advent page and post your content on the day of the C# Advent that you signed up for, I want you part of the C# Advent. So check it out. A few spots left. They're going to go very soon. I expect them to be eaten up very soon. It's 50 total spots, 2 for each day. Last year we filled up, no problem. The first year I filled up only 25 slots. I filled up very, very quickly. That's why I expanded it to 50. So check it out before it's too late. But if you're watching this video later, before December, the December 1st, we'll start actually publishing these posts and promoting them on Twitter, on social media, on Reddit, wherever. And then each post will in turn promote all the other posts in the C# Advent as they go along. So should be a great time. Usually most people, it's a pretty big bump in traffic for them. So if you're interested in kickstarting a blog or bringing your blog back to life, this is a great place to start. And it's just a bit of fun in December, which is my favorite holiday, leading up to my favorite holiday, December 25th. Okay, so check that out there. That's the full URL if you want to go there, but csadvent.christmas is the short version. Hey, it's Gamlor. Catch you again. Yeah, you did. What's up, Gamlor? I haven't seen you around in a while. Thanks for stopping in, checking things out. Good to see you. Couchbase survey. So if you are a Couchbase user, if you've just started with it, or you're like an old pro, or somewhere in between, we've got a survey going on right now. We're trying to reach out to the developer community, get some feedback, get some opinions, get some data, and we got a survey for you to fill out. It's a few questions, mostly around Couchbase and NoSQL and your technology stack and in your team and things like that. Oh, you missed a link on the screen before. It was this csadvent.christmas. I'll put it right there in the chat. And you can check that one out. That nice little handy URL is courtesy of Calvin A. Allen. It doesn't seem to be working. I don't think the Twitch chat is parsing it, at least not in Streamlabs. So here is the full URL. That's kind of funny that it's not recognizing that as a URL. But it's .christmas. That's a little bit odd, I got to admit. So the Couchbase survey. This is what link arrived in the chat. Okay, great. And the Couchbase survey, which is, again, this is for people who are using Couchbase. If you're just starting out or if you're an old pro, somewhere in between, there are prizes. So I want you to sign up for this. Give us some information, give us some feedback, and we have some great prizes to give away. Why don't I just show you them real quick. Here is the questionnaire. And we've got these 4 prizes we're giving away. These are the same prizes have brought to our booth events as well when we sponsor conferences. Commodore 64 Mini retro console, comes with a lot of games built in. A JBL waterproof Bluetooth speaker, very cool. A Rocketbook reusable notebook. This is on my wish list for this year. And a fun little techie security hacking type of board game called Decrypto, which is I have not played yet, but the box looked very cool, so I thought I'd pick it up. It's got great reviews on Amazon, and this might be on my wish list as well. Who knows? All you gotta do is fill out the survey, and we will pick a prize winner at random. You better hurry though, because it is October 31st is when we're going to decide. We're actually going to pick the winners. You can still fill out the survey after that. You're welcome to, but the prizes will go out to people who have filled out the survey up until October 31st. So definitely check that out. Okay. A little knuckle crack. We're ready to get started here. So we're going to talk about event sourcing and Cqrs. And just a little bit of warning here is that these can be somewhat complicated to think about if you've never approached this issue before and never had a problem along these lines before. So I'm going to kind of compare and contrast Cqrs to the normal Crud, which you may have heard of before. So we're going to zoom in here. So Cqrs, it stands for Command, Query, Responsibility, Segregation. Like many things in computer programming, it sounds super, super fancy and complicated, but it really isn't. This is one of the reasons I wrote my book, Aspect-Oriented Programming in .NET. Is that aspect-oriented programming sounds so complicated and highfalutin and academic and computer sciencey, but it really isn't that crazy of an idea. It's just got really sort of complicated sounding terms around it. And I think the same thing applies here to Cqrs. Crud, if you've not heard of Crud before, this is just an acronym for, or what do you call it? Whatever it is. Create, read, update, delete. So if you think about your basic repository pattern, you think about your basic SQL queries, they all kind of correspond to CRUD. So you have a piece of data, you create it, you read it, you update that piece of data, you delete that piece of data. The end. Cqrs, I mean, you're still doing reading and writing, but the idea here is that you are segregating them into two different objects. So when you want to update or create data, you execute a command. So a command is something that mutates data. If you want to read data, query it, get it, you use a query object. So there's two different things. So a command does not necessarily return you any data, any information, and a query shouldn't make any changes to the data. So you have these two different paths. And so let's see if we can find a good graphic here. So here's kind of the idea. So we've got your UI here on the right. This is your website or whatever. The user wants to make a change, so they hit the save button or something. It'll go through a command model here. So this maybe do some validations and some logic, things like that. But ultimately, it's going to update the database, right? And then let's say now the user loads a web page and it wants to show some information on the screen. So that's going to use a query command, and it kind of shows the arrow going backwards, but the UI does make the query, does execute the query by creating a model. So the model is going to pull data from the database and shape it, map it to some object. It may be really simple mapping, but it may be more complicated mapping. And it returns to the UI. Now they're segregated. So if whatever I do in this command has no effect, does not share any code or logic with the query model. So this is in contrast to things like maybe a repository or some other sort of a pattern where your commands and your queries may be mixed together and you may want to reuse some logic, or they're part of the same class, that sort of thing. So why would I do this? Why would I want to separate query and command model? Well, there's lots of reasons why you might want to do this. One is maybe it's just maybe you just like it, the architecture. It's a cleaner approach. It's more elegant to execute commands and execute queries as separate things. That's good enough reason on its own, I think. But another reason you might want to do this is because this diagram here, let me zoom in a little bit. This looks simple. It's one single database, right? Well, that may be the case. So in my command model, maybe I want to execute I want to write an insert statement in SQL and execute that statement or update. In my query model, maybe I want to use Entity Framework or Dapper or some other method to get the data out of there. So by splitting them into different models, well, now I don't have to mix Dapper and raw SQL and Entity Framework all in the same repository, the same class, same anything. I could have different methods for interacting with that. So, instantiating a Entity Framework context takes some effort to do. Maybe only do that when it's worthwhile. And in the meantime, as long as I can get away with simple commands, I use Dapper or ADO.NET or whatever. So I'm segregating those things. The other reason, and this kind of is along the same lines, is I don't necessarily always have a single database in my application. Yeah, I know that comes as a shock to many people that you can have different databases in an application. So you might have a relational database to store certain kinds of data, and you might have a NoSQL database to store certain kinds of data. You might have a cache involved in there as well. You might have a graph database. You might have all kinds of different stuff. You might have a flat file somewhere, or since Gambler's in a channel, you might have a legacy DB4.0 app somewhere. Who knows? But any number of different reasons. So your UI and indeed your commands only need to know about whatever database or databases that they are interfacing with. So maybe the command model interacts with a SQL database. Maybe the query model interacts with a cache. And then something happens behind the scenes to sync up the database and the cache. So by separating these out, we're able to, if we did it in a repository class, we'd have to have, okay, now our repository class needs to have access to the cache, needs to have access to SQL Server, needs to have access to our NoSQL database, whatever. So the repository class just kind of balloons up with all these different concerns. Whereas the command model, we can have just that command that needs to use SQL Server. It just needs SQL Server. So, and there's probably other reasons for Cqrs as well, but in my mind, those are kind of the main things. And if you've been watching any of the chatbot episodes in this channel, I do use a kind of Cqrs. I use the mediator library, which does commands and queries. There's not really a oh, hey, it's Entity Adam. Thank you for the subscription. Oh, my goodness. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that, Entity Adam. Thanks for stopping by. So I use a very lightweight form of Cqrs. I'm just using a single database, nothing too fancy there. I could probably get away with using repository, but I wanted to try it out. So Cqrs. That's sort of the basic explanation there. Hey, you missed All Things Open. Sorry I wasn't able to meet you in person. Oh, no problem, man. All Things Open was pretty great. That event is getting very, very large. I've got 2 more events this year that I know of, but they're on the West Coast. One of them is KubeCon in San Diego. Never been to San Diego before. That should be interesting. And the other one is QCon, which I've been to QCon New York, but I'm going to QCon San Francisco for the first time. So if you're going to be at those events, come to the Couchbase booth, say hi. I'll be there. Those are KubeCon. I expect to be a massive, massive event. QCon San Francisco. If it's like QCon New York, it's a lot of people there, but not like massive, massive KubeCon size event. Anywho, so let's. This is something I wanted to try out for the stream. This is a tool I've downloaded recently called Trizbort, and this is a tool that I want to use because it's designed for you love me some Cqrs. So that's cool. Well, so maybe as we go along here today, you can chime in to see how if I'm wrong or how wrong I am, or maybe you can just provide some little tidbits about some stuff that you've done with Cqrs. But anyway, I do some adventure game streams on Twitch, and I've been looking for a way. The games I'm playing are getting more complex. I'm sort of starting old, and I'm moving towards the new, and creating good maps. is a big part of playing these old school point-and-click adventure games. So I was trying to look for some software to help me do it. And I found this. It's called Trisboard. So I thought I would play with it a little bit and also use it to just kind of map out the ideas I'm working on here today. So let's do some diagramming, some PowerPoint style diagramming, but in an adventure game tool. So here I've got my SQL database, and I've got let's just say, I don't know, a cache, like a NoSQL cache. All right, we'll make the NoSQL cache a little smaller. All right, okay. All right, now I've got. Can I put rooms inside of rooms? I wonder. Yeah, I can. Cool. Okay. So this will be my I don't know, my app. This will be commands, and then I've got this. This will be queries. Is that how you do it? All right. And then I've got oh, this is an app. This is sort of the, I don't know. This is the business logic, data access, whatever. Let's call it the back end. Let's call it back end. Okay, and this is the front end / UI. Could be a REST API, whatever. Oh, zoom in a little bit here. Ooh, Cqrs. It's Coral. Yeah, we're talking some Cqrs today. Hopefully I get it right. Hopefully I get most of this right. Okay, so now I've got my front-end UI, which, so this, the way that Martin Fowler was doing it was, I wanted to get an arrow on there. Arrow. Let's move this. Whoops. Okay, let's do that. UI wiki boxed. That beats every regular box. May all your boxy architecture be plastic. So this isn't really like a UML tool, right? This is a adventure game mapping tool, right? So it's all going to be boxes as far as I know. Squiggly boxes. Okay, and then we've got, I've got this. It's going to go to here, right? So what I'm showing here is that my front-end UI, so unidirectional data flow through separated concerns are da bomb, yo. Once again, unidirectional data flow through separated concerns. It sounds so fancy, but it basically just means it's only just getting data, and other things just write data. They just do their own thing. It's really a fancy way of saying that. If you're new to computer programming, this is something you're going to probably be intimidated by at first, and then eventually it gets kind of annoying, and then eventually it gets just kind of funny. It's that everything sounds so fancy and highfalutin, but really it's just kind of simple concepts given fancy names. I'm sure it's not just a phenomenon that's only in computer science. I'm sure a lot of professions are like that. Okay, so now we've got this front-end UI. It's able to get data. Now we're pulling it from our NoSQL cache. So, our cache is going to be faster, right? So chances are you're doing more reads than you are writes. So if you can speed up your application with the cache, it might be a good good idea to do that. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to say, all right, let's see, yeah, fancy terms for don't muck stuff off and step on your own feet. Yeah. Okay, so now my front-end UI, I have a user or whatever. Don't muck stuff up, stuff off. Well, muck stuff off, muck stuff up, same sort of thing. Whatever. Choose your own preposition. Our front-end UI, our user makes a change. They update their name, they add an item to shopping cart, or whatever, and it goes through command. Now the command, and again, I'm asserting that there's more writes than there are reads. That's not always true, but it's sort of a good rule of thumb. So we expect a small amount of commands to actually be run compared to the number of queries. So we don't have to worry about using a cache for this because it just doesn't happen that often. So we can write to a SQL database. a relational database or whatever, right? So the commands will then go to the SQL database. Well, so that's kind of it. You're kind of a command query segregation. Queries go to the cache and the commands go to the SQL database. So at some point, though, we need the SQL database to talk to the NoSQL cache. Or, it might be, this might not be a cache, this might be another SQL reporting database, right, which is another sort of design pattern. This might be a NoSQL database, right? So maybe we're just writing to NoSQL database because writes can be very, very quick on that. And then we're actually using a SQL database to do queries on. It doesn't matter, right? It's just, database 1 and database 2, and then choose which database makes the most sense. And in fact, in reality, you don't even need have 2 databases, right? It could be 1, it could be 10, right? It just matters. It just matters what you're trying to do with the data. But what I'm getting at is now the database 1 needs to get this new data that's been written into it, needs to get it into database 2 somehow. Like that data needs to go in there. So how do we do that? Well, I mean, a simple way is we could have the command update the data in here and in here. So now it's twice as many writes. I don't know. That's one option, I guess. Another option is we could have, instead of this, we could have a some sort of, Kafka or message bus or something along those lines in there. And so that's just going to publish something into Kafka. And then maybe these databases can subscribe to Kafka directly. They can be Kafka syncs. And so then the data goes into here and it goes into here. It goes into both places. Something along those lines. Again, why would we have 2 different databases with the same copy of the data? Lots of reasons, right? Database 1 could be in one format. Database 2 could be in a different format, a format that's more amenable to the types of queries that we're going to be running. It could be that database 1 is a relational database following a very strict schema. Database 2 is a memory-first JSON-based cache that's much faster, providing results to the front end. Could be lots of different reasons to do this. So that's another way we could go about it. But the key here is that we have commands and queries are separated so that it doesn't really matter to the UI where the data is coming from. And it doesn't really matter to the UI where the data is going to. But those are 2 different concerns there. Okay. So let's, that's not a really great drawing, but we'll save that off here, Cqrs. Again, this is Trisbort. So let's start over now. Next thing I want to talk about is related concept. Those are often talked about in the same sentence. They are not the same thing. They don't have to be used together, but they often do go together, and that is event sourcing. So again, this is fancy sounding, like, ooh, event sourcing. What does that mean? Oh. And there's some fancy diagrams in here. These are all great, but let me just see if I can break this down to a simpler way to look at this. So let's look at the CRUD-based approach, right? So I have a person, and this is name Matt, shoe size 13, bank account 17 cents. Okay, so that's a person, and I stored in my database, maybe in a row in a table or a JSON document, whatever. Okay. So now Matt gets his paycheck. So one way we could do this is we could say, all right, Matt got his paycheck. Let's just change his bank balance to $100.17. He got his $100 paycheck. Okay, so that's the CRUD-based approach. We're updating, we are reading, we are deleting, we are creating an individual person. Okay. Now, if you have used a bank's website before, you know it's not exactly how it works. The bank doesn't just go and update your balance just in a vacuum. you can, when you log into your site, you'll see information like this. It'll say, oh, here you are, here's your name, Matt, here's your current bank account balance, right? But then you drill and you click on the bank account, and what you're going to see instead is something like this. So we're going to have, instead of just a person, we're going to have a series of events. So event 1 might be create an account with this info. Name, Matt. Shoe size, 13. Balance, $0. Okay? So that's one event. The next event might be deposit from employer. So this means add to balance, $100. Okay? Let's see. Gamalor, I do not like to update important rows directly. Prefer to have a new record representing the change, like plus 100 USD or something down these lines. Exactly, Gamalor. This is what event sourcing is kind of getting at. So this is what we have now. We have 2 events. So let's just say we have let's say event table. We have one row, creating an account. We have another row, adding money to the account. Okay, and then Matt buys new shoes. New shoes. Debit from balance, and he spent $75.18 on shoes. Okay, and we keep going like that. We keep adding more and more events. So maybe Matt's say profile update, and so we add Twitter. Well, let's see. We add address. Add address. That's going to be 123 Main Street, Grove City, Ohio 43123. Okay. So we have 4 records in our database. 4 of them. And so if we wanted to get the current state of Matt in our account, we could play back these events, start with 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we'll end up with what? We'll end up with, so our current state is name Matt, shoe size 13. Okay, it started with balance of 0, and then it went to 100, and then it went to, so what's that, 2482? Okay, and then it added an address of 123 Main Street, etc. So the events, when you play them all back, you will get the current state of Matt. So these are the events, and they are the source of the current state. So you don't store a person. You store all the events that make up that person, that make changes to that account. Coral, yep, mutation brings all sorts of troubles. A write-only event log approach is safer and lends itself to more distributed approaches, which banks have been doing well before computers. Yes, and I do want to make this clear, is that not every use case you don't necessarily need to do this for every single use case, right? It's the benefits of this is that you can, if something goes wrong, a bug occurs, you can fix the bug and then go back and replay these events to create the correct state of the user. You also get an audit, because maybe this is written by, this was a deposit from employer, so this is source is, I don't know, I get paid through like Paycom or something, right? And this could be source is last place I bought shoes, a store called Lucky Shoes, and profile update. This could be the mobile app. Mobile app did this one, and this could be a source could be an account manager, Steve, who created my account. I went into the bank and created the account. Steve was the one who actually performed the operation to create the account. So I can go back and I can see a history. I can see an audit of this. Let's see, Gamlor says, even without bugs, you can see how something went into that state, like when bogus data was entered, when in the subscription important thing changed. Absolutely. So this gives you an audit trail to go back and say, well, I know my balance is 2482. How did you get to that number? Easy. Well, it started at 0. He got paid $100, then he bought some shoes. Whereas if I don't store these events, I just store the current balance, I really have no idea how I got to be $24.82. So, I mean, there's lots of use cases. It's not just banking transactions. There's lots of things that you might want to do to track all these different events. And I believe an episode a while ago, I did a little bit of event tracking for like a shopping cart. Okay, so some problems with this. One, it takes more effort to do because now you have to store a ton more data, right? You have to store all these events. Let's see, Coral. The benefit in a distributed system is things can work fine with their own independent view of the state. The trade-off being when an issue occurs, 2 withdrawals occur individually, in tandem, or withdraw the account, a separate action must be taken to reconcile them. Absolutely, yes. And again, if we're talking banking, that is absolutely the case. So this is something people bring up to me because I work for a NoSQL database company, which until recently we didn't have ACID transactions. It was a distributed database. We've just added ACID recently, but that's relatively new. And it's new to a lot of distributed databases. So people often ask, well, I need transactions because, I'm tracking financial data. I'm tracking balances, things like that. So I need to have transactions, which, I can understand the reasoning there, but the real world banking system does not work like that at all. If you think about ATM machines, you think about clearinghouse for checks, these things are absolutely not ACID transactions on your bank account. It may take 24 hours for a check to clear, to go through a clearinghouse and be applied to your account. In the meantime, you have this piece of paper floating around out there that the computer system knows nothing about, and so you could easily overdraw your account. So we see this a lot. We see overdraft fees, people make mistakes, or people abuse the system, and we have to figure that out because that's just the way the real world works. Anyway, that's just a little rant of mine. So this is a great system if you need things like auditing. You want to be able to go back and replay events to diagnose bugs or to see the history of something, to see all the events that make up the current state. The problem is this is a lot more work. You have to create these events and you have to possibly create individual commands that correspond to these. So this is why it sort of jives well with the command query segregation, command query responsibility segregation, CQRS, is because this, a debit from balance command is different than an add to balance command. They have different information, different data, different stuff that you might want to store for that event. An add address or update profile event is a different command than creating an account command. So that's why CQRS and event sourcing kind of fit together. They don't have to, right? You can still use something like repository or Crud or whatever and do the same sort of thing, but CQRS fits kind of well with this. The other problem with this system event sourcing is if I want to get the current state to show to the user when they log into the website, for instance, and they want to see what's my current balance. If I want to build this, I have to go and query their entire history and run through all that history to generate this current state. Which that's a real pain. And especially if I want to query multiple users. I want to see, okay, find everybody in this zip code who has a positive balance, for instance. I have to run the event store for every single person. So typically, that's not how it really works. Typically what we do is, let's go back to this diagram here. We will, let's load up our CQRS here again. All right, so let's think about this again. Hopefully you can kind of see, why isn't this, there we go. You can kind of see where this is going. Is that this database may be my events, and this database base may be my aggregates, is the term is typically called, an aggregate, aggregates. Okay, And so when I create a command, it creates an event and stores it in this event store. It might be a table, it might be a separate database or whatever. And then when I do queries, I want to do them, maybe against the events sometimes, but oftentimes I'll be querying the aggregates themselves, the sum of the events. See, now he's adding the query/report database. Well, right. So you could also think of this as a reporting database or aggregate database or what have you. And so then again, we have to figure out a way for these events, because we don't want to query these events every single time and do all that building up of the aggregates every single time. What we can do is we can kind of do a cache. Whereas when a new event comes in, we'll save that event. We'll also apply that event to the latest aggregate. So this aggregate is going to be Matt, balance $24. An event comes in that says, oh, Matt spent $5. Okay, so we store that event, and we also update the Matt aggregate to subtract $5 from the balance. So we're storing basically a copy of the rolled up data in this aggregate database here. Now, this could be a single database with two different tables in it, for instance. That's absolutely a possibility. However, it may also be this is a relational database, and this is a NoSQL database, or vice versa. We could switch them around, or they could both be NoSQL. Again, it really depends on what we're trying to do. The benefits here of bringing in NoSQL is that our events, we may be adding all kinds of different events all the time. We may add new events. Thinking about a balance. We have a debit, we have a credit, right? Maybe we have a different event for cash back. We have a different event for late fee. We have a different event for profile update. We want to keep adding events to the system. And on the same token, our aggregates may also change structure from time to time, right? So maybe we add different information to the profile as we go. A new event may add some new kind of information. So it might make sense to have a flexible data store to handle these changes as we go along. Another reason is that, as I showed you in this example here, this is just 4 events that correspond to basically one row of data. This one right here, the current state. So the current state consists of 4 events. In reality, the current state may exist of thousands, tens of thousands of events. Just think of all the activity you've done on Amazon or on your bank. Every single thing you click or add to cart or anything like that causes an event to be created. So we could have a huge, huge store of events. Oh, Gambler, going to sleep? All right. Have a good evening. Have a good sleep. I hope you have sweet dreams of Cqrs architecture. So for any particular user, we could have 10,000 events in here for one aggregate, for one user. So a massive distributed database makes sense to store your events in. Maybe you store your aggregates in there as well. Maybe not. Maybe use one database for both. Maybe not. So that is event sourcing. That's basically my understanding of it. Someone who is really, a follow from Tkamiyama. Tkamiyama? I hope I'm saying that right. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. That's my simple understanding of event sourcing and CQRS, as they kind of go together. They don't necessarily have to go together. But the reason I wanted to do this stream is because there's lots of ways that we could sync this data up. So we want to sync this data up from events to aggregates. One simple way is, if this is in the same database, we could have a trigger in place. Whenever a piece of data updates in events, then we also update it in the separate aggregate table. Okay, it's possible. Oh, one last thing. The cross-cutting concern blog post link on Twitch is missing a dot in the URL. Uh-oh. Are you talking about this one right here? That's missing a dot in the URL. Cross-cutting concerns blog post link on Twitch. I don't know what you're referring to. The links section on the Twitch page. Oh. Let's fix that real quick then. We're going to watch myself here for a second. It's about time I found a streamer using a real code editor, Notepad for the win. Hey, the Michael Jolly, what's going on? Oh, it is missing. Okay, we're going to have to edit this. Nope, that's not it. Edit panels. Thank you, Gamlor, for pointing that out. I will make that change right now. I appreciate that. We're going to get to a real code editor here in a second. Michael Jolly, Entity Adam. Carrot, I assume you're dittoing Michael Jolly's comment. We're going to switch to Visual Studio here soon, because what I want to do is, where was I? Oh, yes. So we could create a trigger that anytime we insert a row into this events table, we do something to update the corresponding aggregate. I like Notepad. I also like to live dangerously. Technically, it's Notepad++. Laughs in Emacs. I think Coral has been a big Emacs proponent ever since we first met. I think it may have been Coral's first words to me was, "Hey, using Emacs." My only form of version control is Control-Z. It's got control in it. That's a version control. All right, so trigger is one, database trigger. Database triggers, though, people have strong opinions about database triggers. And again, if we're talking about storing large amounts of events, a trigger with the what's the word I'm looking for, sort of the ACID semantics and things involved around triggers, that may be kind of a problem for your data. Not just the last 5 or 6 years. For Emacs, I assume. I used Emacs in college. That was the editor they wanted us to use was Emacs. I only used it when I had to, though. If it wasn't Emacs, I was using probably Ultra Edit. Do you remember Ultra Edit? Is that still around? Ultra Edit is what I used for my coding, which was C++ back then. Ultra Edit, and then at home I'd use MinGW. I think MinGW, or what was the other one? The C++ compiler for DOS. And the MinGW was the one for Windows, I think. I can't remember. It's been a while. Of course, at school we used, it was Unix. DJGPP. That sounds right. One of those two. I haven't done C++ in so long. Anywho, as I was saying with Cqrs, there's lots of other things we could do. So we could have a, Rabbit or Kafka or whatever in here that you're going to publish to Rabbit or Kafka, and then it will publish, these will be sinks that consume that data from Rabbit. So something goes into events and something else goes into aggregates, or it goes to update aggregates. And then, so if aggregates goes away, we can still rebuild everything with events. But we're keeping an audit trail, and we're also updating the latest aggregates by going through Rabbit. So the benefit to this is, okay, with Kafka we can, or Rabbit, we can actually scale out now, and we can scale out our backend, we can scale out our queuing system to deal with whatever the front end wants to throw at us. However many requests are coming through, we can always scale out horizontally to accommodate that. If we're using a distributed database like a NoSQL database, we can also scale out events. We can just keep scaling out as we need to. Same with aggregates. Aggregates, we may want to scale that vertically. If that's a SQL server, a relational database, we can just scale it vertically. Or we could also make that a NoSQL database. So this is what I was thinking, is something like this. because I'm very Couchbase minded. What if we went to the single database model, okay? And this is the aggregates bucket, and this is the events bucket, okay? And then, so instead of Kafka, what I do is, get rid of this. I'm going to put some eventing in here. And then any data going into the events bucket is going to cause an event to execute. We've looked at events in the stream in the past. It's a piece of JavaScript code that can live on Couchbase and can mutate data. Entity item says replace everything between Couchbase and backend with Akka.net. Akka is another approach to this. Akka, I don't know if you can do Cqrs with Akka. I've not used much Akka. I really kind of want to get into Akka at some point because I've never touched it. Sounds like it's some pretty cool stuff. I was looking at the Akka.net documentation the other day, and it seems, I want to be nice, and it seems very comprehensive, like very detail-oriented, and it was a lot of, here's the architecture, here's how the actor model works, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and there wasn't really like here's your hello world example of Akka, like your quick start. Yes, you can do Cqrs with Akka. Okay, cool. Is that what you're doing, by the way, Anthony Adam? Was it you who came in here? That's completely based on messaging. Right. So you have actors and they pass messages between each other. That's sort of the idea there, I think. I kind of understood that much. Yeah, I had a hard time getting started with Akka.net, with the documentation. So maybe I'm just in the wrong place or looking at the wrong thing. Or again, overthinking it, right? Because, again, computers, it is too comprehensive for my taste. The Akka or the documentation? Because, again, the documentation there's tons of it. There's so much of it. But even the getting started, like the first page was just like this huge wall of text. And just like, okay, that's good. I'm glad that's there. That's a good reference material. But what about just like the very first application? And I'm not here to say that like Couchbase's documentation is so much better. But I feel like we do have plenty of like really entry level, here's how to get started examples. Anyway, Akka. And then so we can explore Akka in another episode. I think I'd love to do that. But I'm thinking, let's simplify this. Let's not bring Kafka into the equation. Let's not bring anything else into the equation other than this command is going to store events and the queries can query the aggregates. And Couchbase itself can handle the translation between the two. Now, one of the things, I guess I didn't cover this, is even with Kafka, adding Kafka into the equation or Akka or things like this, there is a period of time after we write to the event, unless we're using something like a trigger, which we may want to avoid for scaling reasons or performance reasons, that there's going to be a little bit of period of time between when you write the event and when the aggregate gets updated. So I put in an event to update my address. It may take a few seconds for the aggregate containing my address, containing a copy of my address, to also be updated. This is known as eventual consistency. So the events and aggregates buckets are not going to be in strict lockstep all the time. The aggregates bucket may be a little bit behind. And so that's another one of the trade-offs of event sourcing we have to think about is if we want to avoid having to query the entire history of events every single time, we're going to have this basically a cache of the latest version of an entity, aggregate, and we have to accept some eventual consistency there. And the same thing goes with eventing, because eventing in Couchbase is not like a trigger. It's not something that, oh hey, bada bing, bada boom, times 4. Eventing is not something that is a trigger that the Michael Jolly with the subscription. Thank you, Michael Jolly, for the subscription. You're awesome. That's how I type when I'm working. So eventing is something that is, I'm not going to say eventually consistent, but it's an event occurs when a mutation occurs. So I add a document into the events bucket, and then an event may occur at some point after that. I'm all in for those Calvin emotes. One of the things about the Calvin emote, whenever I do a raid to someone that is not hung out in this channel or doesn't know who Calvin is, they think that it's a picture of me. And they think it's a little bit vain to use my own picture in my own emotes. So it's maybe I need to change the emote to have the text bada bing on it, or maybe have one for bada bing, one for bada boom, something like that. Nah, tons of people do that. Anyway, I don't know. I'm sure it's fine. But I'm sure there's people out there on Twitch who think that this is what I look like, but it's Calvin. Anywho, so that's what I'm thinking. Like this would be a really, really simple approach to doing Cqrs, and pretty much all of it exists inside of Couchbase, and then I can use. Oh, sorry, event sourcing is what I meant. All the event sourcing exists within Couchbase. I just have to write these events, and then I can use Cqrs to interact with it. The commands will go to the events bucket. The queries will come from the aggregates bucket. Who wouldn't want to look like that bald, bearded, beautiful man? Bald, bearded, beautiful man. Try saying that 3 times fast. Bald, bearded, beautiful. So anyway, that's a lot of talk. That's about an hour of chatting with you all, and talking about Cqrs and event sourcing. But that's what I want to do. I want to try this. I want to try to make a really, really simple, like a .NET app that does, because I roll with .NET, ASP.NET. We could probably do the command line. We don't have to do ASP.NET. Bring that into this example, and just a couple of buckets and some events. So that's what I kind of want to prove out that concept and write some code to do this and see how well it works. See how much work it takes to write these events. So that's what I want to do. So at the second half of my show, the next hour, we're gonna try to do this. We're gonna try to get as far as we can with coding that example. So I'm going to take a very short break here. So don't stick around. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to refill my coffee cup. But in the meantime, let's switch it over to the break screen here, and I will be right back after these messages. All right, I'm back. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to go ahead, and I've got running right now. I've got a Couchbase server running. This is Enterprise Edition because I'm going to use Eventing. Eventing is only in Enterprise Edition right now. I'm just using the Beta 2. We've got a second beta release of 6.5 out right now. So this is a beta mode. But let's just do I don't know. Let's just do user profile. I think. So we've got a user aggregate. Give that a gig of RAM, and we've got a user event source. Let's just call it event source. Give that a gig of RAM, and we're also going to create an eventing metadata, which we'll see why we need that. And let's give that half a gig of RAM. All right, so I've got 3 buckets here. And this kind of corresponds to this. So I've got this events bucket, aggregates bucket, and then eventing itself needs its own bucket, its own place to put data. So we'll put that in there too. All right. Okay, now over in Visual Studio, let's do a new project. And let's make it an ASP.NET Core application. And so we're going to say zproj, and we're going to call it Cqrs example. Why not? Okay, and we're going to make an API. I'm not going to do any sort of UI for this. It's just going to be REST calls. Yep, looks good. And .NET Core 3.0. We're going to use that. It's the latest release of .NET Core. And I'm going to do some Cqrs stuff. I do want to make it clear that while I'm using ASP.NET, I'm using C#, and I love all those tools, that what I'm proposing here, it actually doesn't matter what language this backend is written in. As long as it makes its way into the events bucket, the Couchbase will handle the events and update the aggregates. So any other application that's maybe a separate application doing the queries, for instance, maybe you handling the commands in C# and handling the queries in Python. Who knows? Maybe it's a microservices architecture. You have one service to do some of the commands, one service to do different commands, whatever. So this could be a whole different set of back-end commands. They could be all different languages, and you could even like service mesh them together, that sort of thing. So don't get hung up on the C# stuff too much. Just know that I personally love C#. I'm running the C# advent, so it should be pretty clear that I'm doing that. Okay. Well, this gives me a weather forecast. It's interesting. I guess I knew that. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to Startup. And what I want to do is I'm going to add in a couple NuGet packages. So we're going to first add Couchbase dependency injection. Right here, Couchbase.extensions.dependency injection. This is not an official supported Couchbase project, but it wraps the official Couchbase SDK and just makes it easy to start using that in ASP.NET Core. I'm also going to use Mediator. This is a Mediator implementation, which you can use for Cqrs. This is also what I'm using inside of my chatbot program. But you do not have to use Cqrs, the event source. You don't have to use Mediator, Cqrs. Siegel87. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Thanks for hanging out, checking out what we're up to here. And now I've got to do some configuration. So we're going to say services.add Couchbase. Now I could use the app settings file, but I'm just going to hard code it for now just because I'm feeling lazy. X.username administrator, X.password, password. These are the worst credentials you could possibly use. X.servers equals new list. With Couchbase, it's distributed, so you can give it a list of nodes in a cluster. You only need to provide it with one. Let's see, what functionality does something like Mediator provide? Okay, so it gives us some tools to implement the mediator design pattern. That's all it really does. So we can create request classes and create request handler classes, and mediator will automatically figure out which class to use to handle any given request. We don't have to use mediator. You could hand roll your own Cqrs classes, which is what I've done actually when I started the chatbot, and I ran into some challenges around. Well, if you ask Jimmy Bogart, it's the guy who created Mediator. These are challenges of C# in terms of things that functional programming gives you out of the box. But the idea here is we're going to pass around dependencies and things like that. And I was running into some problems with my own hand roll implementation, so I use Mediator. So you'll see Mediator in action here. It's again, mediator pattern sounds really like, oh, so academic. I could write a whole paper on this, but it's really, really a simple idea. You have requests, you have handlers. Okay, so Couchbase, you can have multiple nodes in Couchbase. You give it the whole list of nodes. You've not heard the mediator pattern before? So you can give it a whole list of nodes. I only have the one node, and honestly, this SDK it'll go to the first node that it finds. So if you have a real Couchbase cluster with multiple machines, then you would want to give it the list of as many URLs as possible. Mediator is a library. That is correct. It's an implementation of the mediator pattern in library form for C# for .NET. That's all it really is. Okay, so there's that. We can say services.add mediate. Is it mediator pattern is a design pattern gang of 4. Yep, that is correct. Gang of 4, by the way, is referring to a book that's colloquially goes by the Gang of 4 design patterns, but it has a different title, and I can never remember the actual title. Design patterns, elements of reusable object-oriented software. And it's called Gang of 4 because it's written by 4 people, I believe. Yep, right there. You can see there the names: Eric Gamma, Richard Helm, Ralph Johnson, John Vlasedes. The Gang of 4. Maverick Twitch, hey, thank you for stopping by, Maverick Twitch. Are you a software developer? Yes, I'm a software developer, a coder, whatever you want to call it. Like in a company, yes. So technically, I'm a developer advocate at Couchbase. It does involve a lot of coding, but also involves a lot of stuff like this, reaching out to the community, creating content, getting feedback, things like that. But in previous jobs, I've been just a straight up core contributor, developer to various different types of software. At Couchbase, I currently don't work on the core project directly at all. It's open source, I could, but I don't. Sometimes I'll work on projects that are in the ecosystem, like I've worked on the entity framework provider and things like that. But yes, I'm a software developer at a software company, Maverick Twitch. Any particular reason you're asking? See, you haven't dug into Gang of 4 pattern names in a long while. What's your view on SDET? SDET. My view is that I don't know what that is. SDET. Let's see. What is an SDET? SDET is a software. Let's see. Well, there's two different things here. Benchmark in the system software community for measuring the throughput of a multi-user computer operating system. Okay. I'm assuming that's not what you mean. Maybe it is. I don't know. Software development engineer in test. So this is a type of position, a type of role, type of job. Is that what you're asking about, Maverick Twitch? Software development engineer in test. So this is a person who is a software development engineer, but they are responsible for testing. Is that what we're going here? There's also a developer, must have knowledge, must have okay, code. So this is someone who is coding automated tests. they're writing code isn't necessarily not necessarily writing core code, but they're writing code to write tests. So what's my view on it? I think it's great. I've known people. I don't know if they've ever used this term, but I know several people who got into computer programming as a career by basically doing this to start out with. They start out in doing manual tests, right? And they're interested in coding, so they'll start writing automated tests as sort of their first code, their first production code is test code. So things like behavior-driven development, we're using Gherkin, you're using Cucumber, whatnot to write automated tests. My view on them is that they're awesome. That's great. Automated test is known as SDET. Okay, this is a term I'm not familiar with. So looks like it's been around for a while. 2010. Selenium, yeah, Selenium is one of the tools, certainly. So actually, I guess you can call him a mentee or a protege of mine. I don't know if that's too pretentious to say that, but he's a guy who lives here locally in Columbus area, and the names for all these ideas always seem to vastly outnumber the ideas themselves. Yes, when we're saying naming is a hard problem in computer science, we're not joking. It really is. So anyway, I'll get your question here, Maverick. But a friend of mine, colleague, mentee, whatever you want to call him. He was in infrastructure, basically sysadmin type stuff, managing servers and networking and things like that. And he wanted to change careers and get into coding instead. And so I worked with him, and he eventually got a job at the place I used to work, doing this sort of thing, doing manual testing, but also he wrote a lot of automated tests as well. And right now, I mean, I don't know if he's still doing that. He's still in coding, but I think he's not just writing tests anymore. Hopefully he's still writing tests, but he's also writing, a core contributor as well. All right, and your question was, what project management tool is in your company? So I think the simple answer to your question is Jira. I work for Couchbase, so if you go to issues.couchbase.com, we're an open source software company. Some of our software is open source. So if you go to issues.couchbase.com, you'll see Jira. It's a public instance of Jira. As expected, says Maverick. Now, this is not me endorsing Jira, and it's also not me jeering at Jira either. Jira is the tool that's been in use at Couchbase for a long, long time. At previous companies I worked at, the last one I worked at, we used something called Fogbugs. Have you ever heard of Fogbugs? I don't know if they still use it or not. You are learning the mainstream tools. Fogbugs, it's not really project management, but there were some extensions you could add to it to give it things like a Kanban system. Let's see, Fogbugs, I assume it still exists. So Fogbugs is the company, yeah, it still exists, that I believe the founder of, or someone who started this company or something, is Joel on software. You may have heard of this book before. He's one of the guys who went on to found Stack Overflow. So, they're calling it project management systems. There you go. They're calling it that these days. Originally, I think it was like a bug tracking tool, hence the name Fogbugs. But yeah, it's a full project management tool, Jira alternative. What methodology do you use? Is it Agile with a capital A? So, again, I'm not on the core team, any of the core teams. It's not part of my responsibility to work on those issues that are in Jira. However, I believe these teams are using a type of Agile, and I'll say Agile with a lowercase a. And I don't think, I don't think they're using anything. I really don't know, but I can talk about my team specifically. The team that I'm on, we use Trello as our tool, because we're separate from the sort of core engineering teams, right? And the type of tasks that we that we do. And so we've used a type of Kanban in the past, which you might consider Agile, lowercase a. And I wouldn't necessarily say our Kanban is strict Kanban either. So, and then before that last company I was at, I don't think we used anything like Agile. They may have called it Agile, but it absolutely was not. And before that, I used, there's another product company, and it was very much Kanban. I can't remember what it was, though, for the life of me. Maybe Agile Zen at some point. I've also used Lean Kit in the past. I find Trello more easy. Yeah, Trello. I like Trello. What I like the most is everybody on board and everybody happy with the tool. So whether it's Jira, Trello, Fogbugs, what have you. I've used a ton of them. So I've learned something new today, SDET. So thank you for that, Maverick. I appreciate that. Okay, now I'm trying to add Mediator. And I thought it was a extension, and I can't remember what it was. Let's see. Services. iService collection, add Mediator, assembly. Yeah. Yeah, bang info doesn't do anything. Bang help will give you commands. But what information are you looking for? Service collection.add Mediator. Yeah, that should work, right? I did add Mediator, didn't I? Yeah, Mediator. What am I doing wrong here? Our service collection. Add mediate. Oh, it's mediate R. Fine. Yeah, current project. That'll give you what we're kind of working on, was a bit of event sourcing here. Why am I struggling with Mediator? There's a dependency injection package. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm confused about. Okay, so I want to remove just plain Mediator. And I'm going to browse for the dependency injection package. Yep, 3.28 million downloads. That's the one I'm looking for. Maverick, I've created my own custom Twitch bot, and so you've put in a few commands here. Other than help, info, and about, what would you expect those commands to do? Because just in the future, if I decide to add more commands, would they just be aliases for current project, like Coral did there? Bang current project, or would you expect them to do something else? Because I have a little running list of features that I want to add to the chatbot at some point. So I would appreciate your feedback. So we want disassembly type of startup dot assembly. This is one of the awkward things about Mediator and it's probably some of the awkward thing about C# or .NET is Mediator needs assembly, so it can scan the assembly to look for handlers. And so there's not a, this assembly or that assembly. You have to go through the type system kind of, or you can do assembly.get from file, things like that. So uptime, stream info, followage, these are all interesting commands. They don't do anything in my chatbot right now. But again, if you have suggestions, I would love to add them to my list for to do if you would find that sort of thing helpful. Okay, so that adds Mediator. So I think we're in good shape there. Those were suggestions. Okay, yeah, suggestions. And I will add them to my list here. But I just kind of would want to know what they would do. What would you expect them to do? Uptime, stream info, followage, follow age. Yeah. Put those on my to-do list. So I've got some other ones like Trout. This bookmark one, I thought about this one. I'm not exactly sure what I want bookmark to do, but something with the user profile here. and I want to add some better help commands so you can get help on a specific command, that kind of stuff. I got a lot to do with the chat, a lot on my plate there, so work on that at some point. Okay, so now I've got, let's go to this controller. I'm going to change this one from, thank you for the follow, Kryptonite Double P. Appreciate that, Kryptonite. Thanks for hanging out with us here. So this is a controller. This is going to be a REST endpoint, basically, to interact with our user profile controller. So I'm going to change the name of this to user profile controller. So we're going to get rid of some of this stuff here. What project coding right now? So I am not a project per se, more of an example experiment, exploring using Cqrs with event sourcing. And so we talked about what that means up until for the first half of the show, and now I'm working on the actual implementation of it. And the idea would be, just as an example, we're going to use a user profile. But this is an ASP.NET Core REST API project. We'll be interfacing with a Couchbase server, NoSQL database. So we can do get. You mean command query? What did I say? Did I say something else? Command query responsibility segregation, CQRS. Yes, that is what I'm doing. So I action result. This will be, I don't know, get users. So this would, I guess, get all the users. And then I have one where it's just going to be a post. And this is going to be, let's see. So we could have, just like 3 different commands here, I think. So we're going to be like create user. Which programming language are you able to code? So I'm using C# right here, C# for .NET. I also dabble in JavaScript time to time. I used to be really into PHP, but I haven't touched that in many years, much to my chagrin. I used to code some VB way back in the day. Don't ask me to do any VB now. I write a lot of SQL. My whole career has pretty much been a relationship with SQL, one way or the other. Create user. So this will be a new user. Something like that. And we'll put not blended in there. And then we'll have another post to, I don't know, let's say, add, I think SQL is a bit confused, especially installation. Okay, so when I say SQL, I mean the actual language itself. Now, when you say installation, do you mean like Microsoft SQL Server, PostgreSQL, MySQL? Because SQL is a language that has lots of different implementations. So yeah, SQL Server. So you're talking about SQL Server. Installation SQL Server is a bit confused. I remember when I first started SQL Server, like installing it was much like Visual Studio. It was, multiple hours to install. But back in those days, I was also installing from CD-ROM installations as well. These days, you can install SQL Server for Linux just on Docker. Just spin up a Docker image. It's very easy to get up and running with that. I haven't actually installed SQL Server in a while. I do have it on this computer. Let me just prove it to you here. I don't think I have SQL Server turned on, but I do have Management Studio. You've used MariaDB in XAMPP. XAMPP. Why isn't SQL Server Studio coming up? Oh well, it's taken a while. XAMPP. Sounds vaguely familiar. Oh, there it is. So here's SQL Server Management Studio. Every once in a while I'll fire this up if I need some relational stuff, which is pretty rare these days. I'm mostly in the NoSQL world, Couchbase, which has its own SQL implementation as well. MariaDB. Let's look up XAMPP. XAMPP. Okay. Yeah, it's a stack. That's what I kind of figured. So it's like Apache, Maria, yeah, Perl or PHP. Do you have Discord? I do have Discord installed. I don't have a Discord for this channel, for Twitch, if that's what you're asking. I don't have that yet. I don't know if I ever will. So I guess I don't have one that I can invite you to, if that's what you're asking. I do use Discord for, I'm on the Live Coders team with Twitch, and we have a Discord for our team members. So let's add social media. Can you make me understand the difference between relational and non-relational database? I can try. So right here I've got Couchbase Server installed, and the thing is there's lots of differences, right? And generally speaking, non-relational databases, a lot of them are distributed, which is kind of the reason they are the way they are. But this is Couchbase Server, and just as an example, I've got a Couchbase Server stores data as JSON. So these are all what are called buckets, sometimes called collections or whatever else in different databases. So I've got a collection of documents here. Right now there's no data in there, but let's say I want to add a document to this database. I give it an ID. This is kind of like a primary key. Kind of. Identifies the document. In the document itself, it has actual data. So Twitch username is Maverick_Twitch_. And then is awesome. Well, that's going to be a true, of course. And what else? That's good enough, right? So it's just a piece of JSON data. All right. So the reason this is non-relational is because I can add another document. Let's call it myKey2, and I'll put in some other completely different piece of data. So name, Matt, shoe size, 13. So both these pieces of data, they both are stored in the same bucket, the same collection of data, but the actual data in them does not relate between each other. So this one has Twitch username, this one does not. This could have Twitch username, but it's not enforced. So these pieces of data are completely independent of each other. They're not related to each other at all. So the reason I would want that is because now if I have, let's say, a cluster of like 10 machines to make up my database, I can take this piece of data and put it on the first machine, take the second piece of data, put it on the fifth machine, and that's totally fine. They're completely isolated from each other. And so it's easier for me to scale horizontally by doing this. Coral, the primary difference is in the name. At its most basic, a non-relational database is storing documents with varying columns and stuff in a single table that can be fetched back based on its ID, whereas a relational store uses a more strictly defined attributes and supports complex relationships between different documents. Yes, and I would say I wouldn't even use the word table when talking about non-relational databases. Cassandra might use the word table, but there's nothing involving tables here at all. Maybe you want to think about it like a table, but because a lot of people come from a relational background. But there's no table involved here. There's no schema. I don't define the shape of the data before I store it. The shape of the data, in a sense, is kind of self-describing. That's why we're using JSON here. Other databases might use XML or YAML or whatever, but JSON is the most popular format for a document database. Yes. So why is non-relational databases are trending? Well, maybe you're begging the question there. Are they trending? In the grand scheme of things, they may be trending slightly upward, but if you look, this is the dbengines.com. It attempts to rank databases by popularity score, the people talking about them, writing about them, things like that. And so the top 4 here are relational databases still. And by far, these are the most popular databases in the world, are relational databases. So I have my own theory on why they're trending, though. Looser requirements limit how you can efficiently access the data, but grant you a lot more options with regard to scaling and distributing the data. Exactly the reasoning there. So scaling and distributing data is the main reason So you can see Mongo here is the most popular NoSQL database. It's still, a far cry from relational databases. Relational has been around for so long; it's got such a strong foothold. However, since the web came around, applications get much bigger in scale. Think of something like Amazon or Google, or even just like, I don't know, Cars.com, for instance, right? The scale that Cars.com has to operate at is so much larger than a computer program before the web. So having a single database machine that stores all your data, that works fine when you only have, the people inside your company interacting with it. But when you basically expose your data to the world, scaling, it becomes a challenge. And Coral says, not that relational databases don't scale, they just scale differently. Absolutely a good point. There's different types of scaling. There's vertical scaling, there's horizontal scaling, and relational can do both. Vertical is super easy. Horizontal is challenging with traditional relational databases. And so that's why NoSQL sort of, I guess, to use your word, started trending. Started trending back in, I would say, maybe 2005-ish, and has been trending upwards since then. Not everyone is, are you learning for your interviews because they ask those? Oh, that's cool. So you got some interviews coming up. You're looking to break into programming, or are you just based on your questions earlier, I'm assuming you're not yet in a position, in a software programming position. Maybe you're in one of those testing roles. Let's see, Kryptonite. I'm coding for my application APK. So you're writing an Android application. I assume that's what APK is the package format for Android. I'm trying to get into a company as SDET or manual tester. Okay, yeah, very cool. Coral says, I like juggling the differences between the two. Gets me thinking more about my data structures and use cases. Coral, that is a really good point. Is that, oftentimes, and I'm just as guilty of this as anybody, and the DB Engine score proves this, it's that we kind of Sopple TV, thank you for the follow. How are you, Sopple TV? We often just sort of think that relational database is just the way things are, and we cram whatever data into relational databases, and it usually does at least a mediocre job of storing data. But if sometimes you take a step back and you think about, is this really the best way to store this data? It may not be. And the whole idea with microservices and polyglot persistence is we can use the tool that's best for an individual slice of our application. Sometimes that's relational, sometimes it's not. Some of the NoSQL vendors are like, oh, you should use our database for every single use case. And one of the things I like about Couchbase is, while we do have a lot of use cases, a lot of customers using us for a lot of different things, we have, I don't think, have ever said ditch relational completely for NoSQL, because I think that's just kind of a strange position to take. Let's see, what else? You're trying to get in a company as SDET or manual tester. That's cool. Maverick, if you need any advice, any help, feel free to stop in here anytime. Questions are always welcome here, no matter how off topic we're getting from Cqrs. Kryptonite, for me, it just makes me crazy. I'm in the solo mode. All my friends fall asleep. I can't code on my own. Kotlin just makes me more crazier. Okay. So you're writing an Android app in Kotlin. Speaking of trending, Kotlin seems to be trending upwards. Okay, so let's imagine a user profile. We're adding social media credentials, adding their user social media information to a user profile. Okay, and we'll do one more just for the heck of it. Let's see. So create user, add social. Let's so our user profile is for, I don't know, add like a social media message. I don't know, something like that. I'm not sure if that's right. Let's see. I know Java, but I find Python to be more friendly. Also requires less lines of code. That may be true. Java is very verbose. Python, I'm not going to dump on Python, but personally, we've talked about this before. Significant white space drives me absolutely crazy. So I can't deal with it. I don't like YAML. I don't like Python, that kind of stuff. Kryptonite, please watch the language in the channel there. No cursing, please. But my ESLint server suddenly stopped. Sounds like you're having a heck of a time there, Kryptonite. Okay, so let's see. I don't know, a social media message. What else could I add to a user profile? Let's see. Something that might be interesting. Yeah, those spaces make me crazy too. And this may just be because, I started out in VB or Basic, and then C++ and VB, and all my formidable years have been in languages where white space isn't significant. So it just feels unnatural to me. But we've discussed this before, and there are some things about these languages that feel unnatural to other people. So, Python is clearly a language that is, useful and powerful, and people like it. So I'm not here to say don't use Python, but for me, I don't want to get into any sort of white space significance. I was doing some YAML here on the stream, in fact, and I got bit by the white space significance just like 10 minutes after I was talking about how I don't like white space significance. All right, let's see. Recurrent user, add social. Let's see, never tried VB. Some IT companies still use VB with QLib for testing. Don't know what QLib is, but yeah, I'm sure there's lots of VB still out there. Okay, I want to add something that's going to involve like math. So I don't necessarily want to use like dollars, but let's see. Something we can add and subtract. Like you're not going to add and subtract your shoe size. We could do we could do something like Fortnite. What do you call them? Vbox. Yeah, let's do Fortnite. Vbox transaction. Or we can do updates. We can do add Vbox. Well, this could be add, or I don't know. It's Vbox transaction, I guess. Could be add or subtract. Hopefully I'm not going to get sued for using Vbox. Okay, so we have a new user. So the information I need for this is going to be name and that's an unfortunate typo. Let's see, string location, why not, and one more, name, location, and I don't know, language, like English, French, that sort of thing. Okay, so when I create a new user, I have to provide name, location, and language. Okay, and then we can also say social media. So this might be social media name, social media type, why not, and so handle. So this could be like Facebook, and this would be, I don't know, Matt Groves, and this would be Twitter, this could be M Groves, that sort of thing. Let's see, I'm trying to solve a problem where information on internet are verified by a browser add-on and corrects it in real time by editing the HTML codes. Information on internet are verified by a browser add-on. So this is something that takes place entirely in the client side. But what kind of information do you want to correct by editing the HTML directly? Because it's only going to correct it for people who are using the browser add-on. Misinformation, okay. Such as? Vbox transaction. So this could be algorithms run on server side. How can I compile JavaScript? Kryptonites. Compile Java. So I don't think JavaScript is a compiled language. Yeah, I don't think you can. I think it's completely interpreted language. I could be wrong about that. So yeah, I don't think you compile it. Let's see, then edits the HTML codes on the client side. Okay, sure. But what, I don't quite understand what, can you give me an example of what misinformation you're trying to correct? You could use Babel to transpile JavaScript, but usually don't compile it. At most, it compiles to WebAssembly. Oh, yeah. You compile to WebAssembly. Actually, you could do that. That makes sense. Yeah. So Vbox transaction. This is going to be an amount. Really, just an amount. Oh, social media. Probably need to also have a ID to coordinate this. Give this user an ID. So we could say user ID, social media, and user ID there. Information like how many hours Nikola Tesla used to sleep. Okay. That sounds kind of ambitious there, Maverick. So you're saying if I go to Wikipedia, it says Nikola Tesla used to sleep 4 hours a day. And you think, okay, well, that's not correct. It needs to be 5 hours a day or 8 hours a day. So your browser add-on would then just switch the text that you're seeing to the correct information? Okay. That seems challenging because you have to sort of interpret like an English sentence that says Nikola Tesla slept 8 hours a day, or it could say Nikola Tesla slept 8 hours every day, or Tesla slept 8 hours a day. Right? Those are all different things. So how do you detect that and update it? I think the better approach might be to just fix the data source, right? If it's Wikipedia, for instance, you can just go in there and make a change. Okay. And then get users. I will use NLP, Natural Language Processing. Yeah. Okay. I mean, wait. Let's see. Let's see if we can find the relevant XKCD comic here. Is it this one here? Let's see. Team. Was it birds? Okay. Yes, this is the one right here. So when a user takes a photo, the app should check whether they're in a national park. Well, this is a different one than I had, but we can look at that one too. Okay. Yeah, we can do a GIS lookup. Should be done in a few hours. Okay, and we check to see if the photo is of a bird or not. All right, well, now I need a research team in 5 years. So I think you're leaning towards the research team in 5 years problem there, Maverick. Let's see, what is XKCD that Coral said? Oh, hey, you organized our photo archive. Yeah, I trained a neural network to sort the unlabeled photos into categories. Whoa, nice work. When you do a task by hand, you can say you trained a neural net to do it. Yeah. So there will be some original website that are verified to be true when you compare the information compared to that website. I mean, you're. It sounds like you're trying to solve kind of the Snopes problem here, to an extent, right? This is how do you verify something to be true, and then how do you apply that? So that sounds very, very challenging, and technically speaking challenging, but also just reality is going to be challenging there. I mean, so who does the information verification? Who watches the watchman, so to speak? Anywho, okay, so we also have this thing where we're going to get users. So we're going to return some information about users. So I want user info. Oh my gosh. Uh-oh. Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. There's a pretty serious raid coming, everybody. So be prepared. This is going to be It's going to be a lot of people coming in. Making me nervous here, C# Fritz. So we're going to say GUID ID for the user. Rutro. Yeah, C# Fritz is the, he's in charge of the live stream code. Yes, everyone who subscribes, you're going to please use the bada bing emote. Oh no! We're being raided! Everybody, quick, defend! Use Calvin's bada bing bada boom. Welcome, raiders! Hello! Hello, everybody from C# Fritz. Thanks for stopping in. The C# Fritz coding squad. All my base belong to you. How is everybody doing today? Hey, Carrie, good to see you. Lily Hazel, thanks for stopping in. Oh, it's gonna be hard keeping up here with all these people. El Adolo. TBD Gamer, what's up, TBD Gamer? I'm doing great. Good to see you too. Janiscu7, oh my goodness, we got Webface with the follow. Everybody, Copper Beardy, thank you for the follow, Callow Creation. Thank you for the follow, Copper Beardy. Oh my goodness, so it's an avalanche of follows. I appreciate everybody. Thanks for stopping in. Oh hi, I'm not myself. Good to see you. A lot of new faces, a lot of familiar faces. Love it, love it. I see you. I see you. Thanks for follows, everybody. Appreciate it. We're doing some command query. No, I'm too nervous to remember the acronym. CQRS. And we're doing CQRS and we're doing event sourcing. Oh no, a rim shot. I'm super glad that I added some throttling to the sound effects. If I knew I was going to get raided by C# Fritz one of these days. So thank you for the raid. I appreciate it. And all the follows. This is great. I appreciate everybody. This is the greatness of the Live Coders team. Let me just do a quick plug for it for those who may not be aware. Twitch/team/Live Coders. Looks like you're wearing a glitter shirt. Yeah, that's probably because the lighting. I have this big picture window, and the lighting sort of adjusts as we go along. But this is my Stack Overflow shirt. You know, it's a little bit of a speckled gray type of shirt. Yeah, sure. We'll go with glitter. It looks nice. Sort of a glitter look to it. Yes, we are one big happy family. You can see here we've got Freeman, myself, and C# Fritz streaming, and 92 total people on the team. Yes, CQRS is Command Query Responsibility Segregation. That is the correct way to say the phrase there. Sounds fancy. How do I join the Live Coders team? Yeah, go check out that page there /team/livecoders. You can see the information about it, and you can go to our GitHub repo. Just an avalanche of follows. I wish I could say thank you to every single one of you as you follow, but I really appreciate it. Chai Sharp, Asha85RUS, Delta, JC Casey, One of Paradise, K, Zonix, Com UA. Love it. Appreciate all the follows. If you want to learn more about the Live Coders team, go to this website here. It's a little GitHub repo. Some information about qualifications and stuff like that. Also do live coding in Ghana. So cool. Someone from Ghana. That's awesome. Yes. If you meet these qualifications, you can submit a application to be part of the team. And that would be awesome to have someone from Ghana doing the live coding. Very cool. Hi, dude from Chile, South America. Oh, yeah, awesome. People from all over the world are in here. This is great. I love it. CQRS is what we're working on. CQRS is basically your separating your queries, the stuff to get data, from your commands, the stuff to change data. We're separating those things out into different objects. And in the back end, we're also in the back end, the back end behind the back end, we're thinking about event sourcing, where every time an event happens, we store that event into the events bucket, and those events can be rolled up into like an aggregate. Some of the events we're looking at here is we're talking about, okay, we're creating a user. That's going to result in a command, and it's going to result in a event that creates a user. And coding, thank you for the follow. Chai Sharp from the Netherlands. We've got everybody from all over the world here. Ghana, South America, the Netherlands. I love it. You're all welcome here. all welcome to ask questions. This is just a fun little. This has been a great raid. I love it. Thank you all for joining us. So create user is going to create an event, a create user event that'll initially create the user. So when that happens, we'll have an event in here and a user aggregate in here. So one record here, one record here. Then we'll do other events. So maybe we're going to add a social media account to your profile. So we're going to add social. It's going to be another command. That's going to put a record in here, but it's going to update the existing aggregate here. So there'll be two records here, but still one record here. And then finally, we're doing Vbox transactions. I didn't want to use regular US dollars, so we're going to use Vbucks today. That's the Fortnite currency. So someone may buy Vbucks, someone may spend Vbucks. We may want to add a description here to this Vbucks, now that I'm thinking about it. And so again, when they purchase Vbucks, they spend Vbucks, an event will go in here and it will update the current balance of Vbucks for the aggregate user. So now we'd have three events here, but still just one aggregate here. That's the idea with event sourcing. And we talked about in the first half of the stream, we talked about why you'd want to use event sourcing, why you'd want to use Cqrs. So if you want to go back and look at the archive, great stuff there. I've only got about maybe 10, 15 minutes left in today's stream, which is unfortunate because I want to hang out with you guys all day, with y'all all day. But I only have so much time in the day to do streaming. So we'll get through some more stuff here. So these three REST API endpoints will all result in commands executing. This one will result in a query executing. It's going to get all the users. So what we want from that is like the name, and we may want something like the Vbucks balance, something like that. So you can see the shape of the data is very different. So we're going to have stuff like language, we're going to have stuff like social media handles, things like that, but our query may not want all those things. Another follow, it's just been follows constantly, follows, follow, I appreciate it. We're going to be back again on Thursday afternoon, Eastern US time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern US time. Probably doing more of this, following up on CQRS and event sourcing. This is just kind of an experiment. We're just kind of a fun way to see if I can do some event sourcing inside of Couchbase without bringing a lot of extra tools into it. We don't have to bring in Kafka. We don't have to bring in Rabbits or any other sort of translation layers or event buses. We're going to try to use what's inside of Couchbase already to do the event sourcing for us. And this is just a fun experiment. I want to see if this is going to work. Couchbase, by the way, is the company I work for. The database that I'm using, it's a NoSQL database. We're storing data as JSON documents. I think it's great. My favorite thing about Couchbase is it's NoSQL data, but we can do SQL queries against it, full SQL. Anytime for a mid-complexity question, my motto in this channel, the only stupid question is the one you do not ask. So encoding, ask away. If it's too complicated for the next 5 or so minutes, that's cool. I'll make a note of it. We'll answer it the next stream. But please, go ahead, ask your question. I'm not myself. Couchbase is awesome. I appreciate you saying that. I think it's very awesome. I've been working at Couchbase for 3.5 years now. My microphone is wobbly. And I like it a lot. So yeah, please ask away. Please ask your question. And I'm going to just keep coding here while you're typing. So what I want to do next is we're going to create a folder here, and I'm going to call this requests. So I'm going to have a new profile request. And because I'm using Mediator, this is going to inherit from request. And that's really all it's going to do. And I'm going to give it a constructor. Richie Ratchet, what are your thoughts on coding bootcamps for someone with no prior experience in their mid-20s? Are they worth it with continued learning for landing a junior dev job in 3 to 6 months? Okay, a really good question. So Mediator is a great lib as well. Yeah, you're right about that. I'm not myself. So I've never been through a coding bootcamp. I went through the traditional, college, and then some some professional training classes, things like that. Never went through a boot camp. But I still think that, yeah, I think if you're looking for a junior dev job in a short time frame, 3 to 6 months, that seems a little aggressive. I would say more like 6 to 9 is what I'd expect, maybe more. I would say just be careful what boot camp you are considering going to, considering investing your time in, because there are some boot camps that are sort of fly by night and don't have much of a track record, or may even have a negative track record. So get some referrals from people who've been through boot camps, who have got job placement. The boot camp is great for learning, getting up to speed very quickly. But one of the benefits of boot camp is that they can also help you with job placement. And so definitely look into that. See what their track record is on job placement. And again, I've never been through one, so I don't know if I could recommend one for you. But let's see. I'm not myself. A good boot camp will put you in touch with grads who have graduated, and you can ask them about their experience. Yeah, absolutely. If you're motivated and driven, you can self-study through things like Udemy, which have video course boot camps. Absolutely. And that's the other point I'm trying to make is, yes, a boot camp education there is valuable. You get instructors, you get curriculum, things like that. You can do all that stuff kind of, if you're motivated enough and you are disciplined enough, you can do that stuff yourself. There's plenty of resources out there. So then kind of the additional value then is, like I was saying, you can help get job placement and help build networking, things like that. These are things you can do on your own, but definitely boot camps can also help you along the way. Shout out to the chat for great input. Yes, I love the chat in here, because there's no way I have all the answers, but I can hopefully help give a platform to people in the chat. Self-taught as possible, but a boot camp kind of works like a certification. Something to put on your resume. Yeah, that's also a good point. It's sort of a signal that, hey, I was able to complete this course, and here's an achievement. Here's a tangible thing that I achieved. I can put on my resume. So yeah, that's a fair point as well. It shows some dedication. It might be impressive, especially if it's a boot camp with a good reputation. All right, so back to controller. We're just gonna bring a new user here. We don't necessarily have to do this. We could just split this out to primitives, but I'm going to go ahead and do this like that. And so request equals new user request. Is that what I call it? New profile request. New profile request. Probably should use consistent naming information there. So we're just going to, I'm going to need a constructor, so I can bring in mediator here. When I get this done, then we're going to try to raid someone else. Keep the raid train going to someone else in the team, or someone else who's doing some coding. We're going to say mediator.send, and it's going to be the request, like so. We can also make this async and await this. And then what do we return? We would just return OK, not capital R. We can return OK. User has been created. Now, what I should also do here is we should probably do some validation. Let's see, Sam Julian is about to start. He just went live. Oh, okay. Well, that might be a good candidate. So this is kind of the command. We haven't got nearly to the database yet, but we've got a command in place. We're taking some information that's being posted, and we're creating a request object and sending that request object off to mediator. Mediator will in turn find a handler, which we haven't created a handler yet, but it will do the handler. So our action here is very, very thin. So every time you use a command, you do two things, right? Update database and send the event to Kafka, for example. Okay, so what you'd probably do if you're using Kafka, you would probably send the information to Kafka first, and then your database would subscribe to Kafka. It would be a data sync. for Kafka, or in this case, database says. Now, what I'm going to do in this example is I'm going to send it directly off to Couchbase, and Couchbase will handle the event sourcing stuff with the eventing framework that's built into Couchbase. So we're going to, this is why I'm calling it an experiment, because we're leaving Kafka out of the equation, and we're having Couchbase do the work itself. It'll still be asynchronous, it'll still be eventually consistent, but we don't have to introduce extra tool into the situation. So I would say, no, I wouldn't do two things. I wouldn't update the database and send the event to Kafka. I would probably send it to Kafka first, and then have the databases subscribe to Kafka. That would be my recommendation if you're going to bring Kafka into it. Okay, so I think that's all the coding we're going to do for today. So if you're interested in learning more about Cqrs and event sourcing, we're going to get back into it on Thursday. This has been really fun. I appreciate everyone from the raid. Thank you very much, C# Fritz, for the raid. Thank you, everyone, for the follows. I appreciate it. It's been really great. Oh, this isn't the website I want to go to. I want to go to Team Live Coders, and we're going to look for, who would you say? It was, love that you're looking at this, Matthew D. Groves. Looking at CQRS and event sourcing? Yeah, it's been on my mind like over the weekend, so I'm really really into it. Are you saying that databases are able to subscribe to Kafka? So you would probably need a connector for Kafka. I have done this in older streams, actually. You can go check it out. I did MySQL pushes to Kafka, which then Kafka, and then Couchbase subscribes to Kafka. So there's a MySQL connector and a Couchbase connector for Kafka. So absolutely, you're going to have to use connectors to do that, but yes, absolutely, that is the case. You can go look at the old episodes down at the bottom, bit.ly/GrovesTube to find those old episodes there. So we're going to go raid, who was it? It was, let's see, Sam Julian. Not seeing Sam Julian on the team. Is he on the Live Coders team, or is he just streaming, doing his own thing right now? We can just go and find out. Sam Julian? It's on a standby right now. So I kind of want to raid someone in progress. I mean, they're about to start their stream, but they're not quite there just yet. So we could raid, for instance, Freeman, who's doing some game dev stuff. Brian Lagunas. I don't think I've ever raided Brian Lagunas before. He's doing some WPF, some Prism. So that is some desktop development. That's a change of pace. I usually focus on web development or back-end development. You've never been able to catch Brian Lagunas, so we'll wait till this ad's over and make sure that he's there.
Not the case. The shorter the talk, the harder it is.
Okay, yeah, I think we'll go ahead and we'll raid Brian Lagunas. Brian Lagunas. A guy I've met in person before, actually, at the last MVP Summit, I think. I think that's where I met him. And he also runs a user group. I've spoken as user group before. So we're going to raid Brian Lagunas. We're going to set that up right now. Everyone go in there, be nice. And if you're a subscriber, please use the bada bing, bada boom emote for that raid. Lily Hazel, thank you for joining the stream. I appreciate it. And thank you, Carrie and TBD Gamer. Everybody else, thank you for the raid. Thank you for the follows. I appreciate it. We'll see you again next time. And we'll head on over there for the raid now.
Of a machine. So I actually got it not last Friday.